Good morning, all, and welcome to the Kubernetes community meeting on Thursday, August 11th. This morning we have actually quite a bit of fun ahead of us, as always, or at least I try to make the agendas fun. We are starting with a demo from Core OS, talking about OpenID Connect and having that backed by a third-party resource. So Eric, are you game to get started? And then we'll jump on with the rest of the agenda following you. Oh, wait, you don't see me? People are saying they don't see my video. Okay.
I see your video, Sarah.
You can hear me.
And see you.
And see, yeah. Fantastic. I am for reals. Okay, then Eric, are you game to get started?
Yeah, sure.
Fantastic.
Okay. So how do I share everything?
At the bottom share screen. There's a little green arrow.
Cool. So everybody sees my screen then, right?
Yes.
Yes. Cool. So hi. First off, I'm Eric. I work at Core OS and have been trying to contribute to upstream SIG auth as much as possible for Kubernetes. And recently, we've been working on trying to basically get one of our services running on top of Kubernetes. So just to back up a little bit and explain and give some detail about what I'm going to be demoing. In Kubernetes doesn't have a concept of a user built into it. You can't kubectl create a user. You always have to be connected to some upstream provider like Google or maybe Keystone or something in order to do anything. So we have a service called DEX, which speaks a flavor of OAuth 2 that Kubernetes understands, called OpenID Connect. And what this is really cool is that our service federates to upstream providers like GitHub or LDAP or Google. So you can actually log in through DEX in order to log in. You can log into DEX through something like GitHub in order to log into your Kubernetes cluster. And it basically allows you to plug in things that Kubernetes doesn't understand. So we've been working on revamping DEX a little bit to basically run better on Kubernetes. And a big problem with DEX is that OAuth 2 and things like that require some degree of state, right? So if somebody has an OAuth 2 client, I need to track that client somewhere. If somebody has if a client has gotten a refresh token, I want to be able to revoke that at some point. So at some point we need some state. And obviously when you run this in Kubernetes, that kind of be a problem, right? I need to run a database somewhere, and what happens if that database gets rescheduled? So in 1.3, Kubernetes introduced a concept of something called a service account, or sorry, not a service account, a third-party resource. So Kubernetes, the API, generally has API groups, things like extensions or RBAC or just the V1. And within those, there are a bunch of these objects. And eventually, all those things are doing is being stored in etcd. But in Kubernetes, you can't create your own objects. And even though that would be really nice to. So the concept of a third-party API is saying, hey, Kubernetes, I want to go create that myself. So if I have my sort of DEX repo here, and in this development version of DEX that's sort of experimental and we're working on, we have a bunch of third-party resources that we've defined. So third-party resources have a couple of fun little bugs that cause this to be a little bit ugly, but basically what you can see is that I can go ahead and define and say, hey, Kubernetes, I want to define an OAuth 2 client. And you're going to understand this concept of when I put an OAuth 2 client, that you will actually be able to store that data. Or importantly, OpenID Connect, its flavor of OAuth, has a signing key. So I can actually put something like a signing key into Kubernetes. So I have a single node Kubernetes instance right here. And what I can do is I can just say kubectl create these. Kubectl create. And what's cool about that is that then I have a flavor of Dex right here that actually uses these third-party resources. So I can do Dex serve, and if I give it a configuration that's wired to talk to my Kubernetes cluster, and I go ahead and press enter, then immediately what it'll do is it'll try to sort of start rotating keys in Kubernetes. And you'll see all these errors. This is basically saying that, hey, I didn't find keys, so I need to create one. But what it's basically doing is it's starting to store all of its state using these third-party resources. So if I open a new terminal over here, and I do kubectl get signing keys. Also, the pluralization for third-party resources is a little bit ad hoc. So we have like a misspelling of keys, but that's okay. And I actually are now storing all of my state here. So the way, of course, that OAuth 2 works is that you have some client app that redirects you to a provider like Facebook. And in this case, Dex is my actual provider, so I can go ahead and run an example app or a client application. But I don't have any clients registered. And again, because I'm using third-party resources, I can actually just go and create a client. So it's a client. So this is what a third-party resource looks like. Whereas the other ones I created were just descriptions. This is actually a full-fledged object in Kubernetes that I can now create. And you'll see that I now have a kind OAuth 2 client that is completely different from actual, you've never seen this kind before because I just created it. And it has things like, here's my OAuth 2 secret, here's my list of redirect URLs, here's the name of my app. And just doing kubectl create, I've now registered this client with my application. So we're just going to go ahead and run this example app. And this is going to go ahead and listen at. So I'm going to go to my example app. It's very full-fledged and totally endorsed by our UI folk. And then when I click login, I'll be redirected to Dex, which is hopefully using these third-party resources to actually work. So I'm going to hit login. Dex is going to give me a couple login options. Again, the UI is a little messy, but I can go ahead and say like, oh, I want to log in with GitHub. So I'm at Dex right now. I log in with GitHub. I logged in correctly, and GitHub, because I've logged in before, it didn't prompt me. And then I can say, okay, I'm going to approve my example app. And now I'm back at my example app and I've actually gotten a token from Dex. So if I go back to my terminal over here, you'll actually see, if I kubectl get like refresh tokens. Again, we've stored all the state in Kubernetes and are now running that out of there. So I can go ahead and like redeem my refresh token and get a new token and so on and so forth. And again, the important part about this is that OIDC is the flavor of OAuth provides tokens that Kubernetes understands. So this token up here is a JWT with stuff like my email address and my name and so on and so forth. And Kubernetes can actually understand that. So I could go ahead and post this into a kubectl, like kubectl config, and then be able to authenticate with the Kubernetes cluster using it. And the big advantage of using third-party resources here is that rather than you having to provide your outside data store, we hope to just be able to, in a very low overhead way, just run this application on Kubernetes and provide a lot more auth options that we can maintain out of branch. So that's pretty much my entire demo. We have some other cool features in here that, and it'd be more full-fledged if I actually wired up Kubernetes to talk to this. But that's what we've been working on with Dex these days. There's a development branch open that has a lot of these changes. So if you come over to the repo and look at the dev branch there's this experimental branch that we're working on to make this a little bit more possible and full-fledged.
So one thing you didn't mention, Eric, is Dex is actually an open source provider of all of this. So.
Sorry, yeah, if you go over to Dex, it's totally under the CoreOS repo and totally open source. Sorry, I should have mentioned that first.
No, it's all good. It's just, I know there's been confusion around that occasionally, so I wanted to make sure we called it out.
Yeah. So we have two branches these days. One is master and one is dev that we've been working on. And the dev has all of the examples that I just showed there. So examples, Kubernetes, and there's some more full-fledged examples for running Dex on top of Kubernetes and also as the authenticator for Kubernetes to allow you to use a lot more options to log it into your cluster.
So do we have any questions for Eric? We've got a couple of minutes that we can do that.
Do I have to?
It looks like Derek has one in chat. TPR are limited to namespace scope. Do you intend to have pet namespaces for this, or do you see benefits for TPR to support cluster scope?
I definitely, it doesn't necessarily matter to me from my use case. For this particular one, you're only ever going to be running one Dex in the cluster. So theoretically, it should be cluster names scoped, but you would ideally want to be setting up ACLs around it anyway, and you can do that regardless of where it is in the cluster. So ideally, yes. I mean, maybe not though, because then I could run multiple Dex in multiple namespaces that would be providing being a provider to different services.
Okay, any other questions? You can also just turn on your audio or your video and ask if you're afraid of typing. All right, I'm not seeing anybody jump up and down. This is awesome. How can people help you and how can they reach out other than GitHub, CoreOS, Dex?
So I'm pretty much always in the SIG off channel in the Kubernetes Slack. So if you pop in there and want to ask some questions, then we can definitely talk in more real time. And even if you just have general questions about auth and Kubernetes, I'm always there to help.
Awesome. Thanks, Eric.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right, so I'm going to pitch now for a note taker. Oh, we have someone, Justin Garrison, taking notes. Thank you, Justin. Hooray. Then I won't have to pitch as hard, although anybody helping take notes is, gets forever my favor. So up next, Philip, are you with us?
Yeah, I am right here.
Excellent. So Philip's got some cool stuff that's been happening in SIG Docs, and then we'll get a broader SIG Doc update next week.
All right. Hi, everyone. So yeah, I'm going to talk about some exciting things we've been doing in SIG Docs from a high level. You may have noticed we did a big surge on Docs PRs. We noticed they're starting to get out of hand, and so a few of us did a lot of reviewing there. And we are now at a point where we have a bot that auto-assigns Docs PRs. So if you see a doc PR getting assigned to you, there might be some metadata at the top of the doc with your name on it. If it doesn't belong to you, go ahead and just have the author change the metadata at the top of the doc so you don't get that anymore. And a lot of them are very small, so they may only take like 5 minutes to review. One thing we noticed when we were doing the docs PR is there's a number of docs in our repo that most of the expertise lives outside the core project. For example, specific cluster setup guides. And as a result, this ends up delaying how long it takes the doc to actually get merged, because some docs writer within the organization needs to review it, comment on it, and then that just blocks what probably we don't need to review necessarily, and the primary maintainers can own and host. So we are putting together a plan for trying to encourage people to move that stuff out and figure out exactly what should live in the repo and what shouldn't live in the repo. But the main key is going to be if the primary people maintaining it, if the content doesn't relate to the core repo, then it probably should live somewhere else. And then I'm going to give a quick demo of some fun stuff we've been working on. So this is a boot camp we've been working on building. This is my first time sharing a screen in the community hangout, so bear with me. Okay, great.
Just fine.
So this is what we're calling a boot camp. The name's still under discussion right now, but the goal is to just provide a quick introduction to Kubernetes that removes as much friction as possible and gets users successful using the product. So I'm not going to walk through the whole thing, but I'll just give you a flavor of it. It has these, some text, it has some nice diagrams, an explanation, and then it has this interactive tutorial part where you can go in and actually type type things and get a cluster working, and go through an actual tutorial and run containers and do all the fun stuff. So it's hopefully closer to the Golang experience, and will remove the friction of people having to leave the site and go figure out how to get a cluster before they can use the system.
And we're looking for review feedback on this. So if anybody wants to play with it in the next day or two and submit issues, concerns, thoughts, responses, that would be super helpful.
Yeah, we're really looking to get feedback by end of today. And no, it's a quick turnaround, but the people we're working with, that's going to be the timeline we're needing on this to get the feedback in. And then one last thing is SIG Docs is going to start having meetings so we can all get together and chat. I think there's a critical mass of us now, and we'd all like to see each other, at least over VC. So we're planning on having a meeting next week. Jared will make an announcement to the Slack channel and the Docs group and probably Kubernetes Dev, and hopefully we can talk about how to onboard new folks who want to start writing docs.
And would that meeting and or those channels be the place that Mike can ask his question about a specific issue within the Kubernetes GitHub IO repository? There's an issue. There's a question in chat about issue number 804.
Yeah. That's
probably a better spot than out here.
Yeah, you can even ping me on Slack. I'm always in the SIG Docs channel, and you can, if you mention me, it'll go to my phone, so I don't have to pull the Slack channel. So yeah, I can follow up with you offline on that. And this is Phil. My handle is pwhitrock. It's I'll add it to the community notes doc so you can see it there.
Thanks, Mike, for the question. I know that you have been stuck on a networking doc issue for a bit, so. Well, we will look forward to the broader update after your first meeting next week.
All right, thanks everyone.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so that was a quick update, and the boot camp, like we mentioned, if anybody has time to play with it in the next few hours to end of day today, would be super helpful. Ihor, you look to be up for the 1.4 features. What looks like it's in, what looks like it's coming, etc.
Yeah, hello everyone. So today I won't have a big update, but I'd like to just clarify what's going on with features 1.4 release. And let me share the screen. Yeah, so as most of you may remember, the spreadsheet that I'm collecting for the actual release, and I have updated it with the actual data regarding the features that are going to be added to 1.4. I have highlighted them with yellow color. So these features are like in the actual state of writing some code, and most of them are expected to be finalized before the softcode freeze that will happen the next Friday, August 19th. So we're expecting these features to be added to the core Kubernetes as a real functionality. That doesn't mean that all the rest features won't be added, but the actual status on the GitHub can provide us like their real status that they're early ready or expected to be ready. So if someone of you has any feature on the features repo within Kubernetes organization and you'd like to see your feature as an edit to wanted for release, and you are actually working on that, but you forgot to update on a GitHub, please do that before the next Friday, because after that we'll finalize all the actual features and start working on the process to add them to the ongoing release. Well, that's general. That's all from my side. I have pasted the link to this dashboard to our notes, so please note taker, add my suggestion to the actual notes for people have possibility to review it.
Ihor, can you drop the link to your effort tracking dashboard into the chat? Oh, Dims did. Never mind. Thank you. And Justin Santa Barbara is asking, what does before alpha mean?
Well, that means that let me open the definitions. Well, in general, that means that this feature has been added to the feature repo as a feature, so it has been defined, and we have proposed this feature to be ready one day for this release. But at the same time, this feature is not actually ready. No coding has been started and so on. So if you can see, for example, on the sample of this feature, you may see the progress track and that describes the actual status of this sample feature. So we have this brief sheet that describes the steps that you have to follow before submitting this feature. And in this case, this feature hasn't followed all the steps. And before alpha means that this feature has been submitted, this feature has been proposed, we have an idea, and it would be great if someday this feature will be added, but no real progress has been tracked for getting this one.
So this goes back to making sure that feature owners are pushing and keeping the GitHub issues and work and pull requests that they're doing in the repository updated, and
yes.
Also the progress tracker information updated so that we can get better reporting at these meetings.
Yes, yes. I see the note from Justin that means that may mean that this feature won't be added for 1.4 because no real work on that has been started. Well, sometimes it may mean that only the feature owner hasn't pushed the real progress of working on this feature to this tracker. So I'd like to ask again for all the feature owners to update the actual status of their features to be really up to date with them, to have the clear information regarding their status.
Yeah, the whole idea of doing the feature repo and pulling together this product team was so we can get better visibility, but that better visibility has to bubble up from the people who are writing the features, pushing the features, leading them, and then summarizing data so that we can share it.
Yes, exactly.
Awesome. Thank you for the update, Ihor. And of course, there is a call out to everyone to make sure that if you are working on a feature, that you are updating GitHub and making sure that your feature tracking issue in the features repository is up to date. All right, today is the 11th. So we have two proposals. One actually is not in here at the moment. So Brandon, are you game to talk about the Incubator proposal for a moment?
Sure, no problem.
Awesome, thanks.
Sure. So what the Incubator proposal is it talks through how to add a new repository into Kubernetes, particularly new repositories that aren't related to code that's already merged into the Kubernetes.git repo. So we've had a couple of swings at this so far. We've had the contribute repo, we have the contrib directory. Right now we have the randomly people who have owners on Kubernetes org add new repos methodology, and it's kind of breaking down. So the proposal essentially defines a little process to circulate what you're trying to do, and then get a couple of folks that are trusted in the Kubernetes community because they're either a reviewer or an approver to kind of shepherd the new incubated project through the process. So the whole thing you can find on Kubernetes Dev. It was posted yesterday evening under a thread that was called process for adding and removing github.com/Kubernetes repos. That's the very last entry in the thread. And it's a Google Doc where some discussion is taking place, and hoping to get this into place so that we can start breaking up contrib and get a little bit better about the process for adding and killing projects in the Kubernetes org.
Making sure that we've set boundaries for, it's a very low threshold to get into the incubator, a little bit higher to get out of incubator, making sure that you show that you have the people supporting it, that it's something that you're not just independently working on, and that you are following and setting up to follow good processes that match the rest of the Kubernetes organization. So relatively lightweight, certainly lightweight on the start, relatively lightweight getting promoted to Kubernetes org, just needing time and traction, and then off we go. So feedback on the doc.
Can we link to that doc maybe on the
Yes.
community?
We will certainly put that doc into the notes, and
Yeah, definitely in the notes.
Yep, we'll put it in the notes, and then after it gets finalized, it'll actually go up into the community repo as a how this shit actually happens. Whoops, I swore. Okay, moving on. So up next is another proposal, which is super awesome. So Fabian has proposed a SIG Instrumentation Group, and so that has been a thread out in Kubernetes Dev. Fabian, are you game to talk for a minute or two about it and see if anybody has any questions or feedback?
Sure. So basically, I'm working on Prometheus upstream, and I'm also working with CoreOS. So naturally, I'm interested in basically giving Kubernetes the best possible instrumentation we can. And over time, we sort of realized that there's just some stuff missing. And also we get user reports more and more on the Prometheus community channels about instrumentation being wrong, missing, and how can we solve this. And by now I think there are at least two sort of external tools to extract data from the API. And this is sort of not the way how instrumentation should go. So we figured we just might form an interest group that just cares about what should we instrument, which other interest group needs which metrics for which purposes, where can we basically join efforts, where should we make separations. And this is sort of just the idea to get a process started to figure out how to improve the whole situation. And also there are a lot of issues by now regarding instrumentation, and this seems to be like sort of an ownership problem. So everybody often agrees that it should be done and how it should be done, but nobody's actually willing to take the lead on that. So yeah, that's something this group could take care of as well.
And push things forward, because one of the things we keep finding is everybody's got lots of great ideas, and if we don't have people pushing them then and championing them and shepherding them, I think we've used a lot of different words in this group. But if we don't have someone who is on the hook for them, then we have a hard time actually delivering them, which fits with the way people work, as it turns out. So Fabian, thank you for proposing this. And there's been a fair bit of discussion about it on the mailing list. So you guys can check that out and look. Fabian dropped the doc into the chat, and we'll put that into the notes as well. Does anyone have any questions about it or immediately want to raise their hand and say, I want to help? No questions, no hand raising. Damn, I'm always trying for the hand raising. All right, people will be conscripted then. Okay, not really, but all right. Thank you, Fabian, for the update and the info, and we will try to get all the feedback incorporated and get you guys started on a SIG. I don't hear anyone saying, no, this is terrible, or no, it overlaps with this, the charter, some other group's charter in a big way. So I think we're well on our way to tuning it up and getting it out the door. So thanks for taking this on. All right, up next is SIG, report from SIG Cluster Ops. I believe, Rob, that you are, yes, there, sharing, but maybe not talking or maybe muted. Maybe. All right. Perhaps we're having technical issues with Rob. His notes say that there are new drawings for the docs showing the different layers of Kubernetes, some functional services, and some sequence swim lanes. I will have to look at what the sequence swim lanes picture looks like. And then there is also some work done on a cluster fitness score that has been sourced from Deis. And there's a demo series, spending the next few meetings with demos and discussions that's going to be kicking off. And this is SIG Cluster Ops. And perhaps we have audio now from Rob? Or maybe not. There's the swim lanes. And then there is a Thursday meeting every afternoon. I believe it is 1 p.m. Pacific time that SIG Cluster Ops happens. All right. If people have questions, then I would recommend they go to SIG Cluster Ops this afternoon. And perhaps the audio issues will be sorted there. Pictures. Flashing. There is a mailing list and a Slack channel, or there is not yet one, a mailing list or Slack channel for new SIG instrumentation. I will have that by the end of the week. All right. Anyone else from special interest groups that wants to do any updates? Anything else that people want to talk about? Or is this going to be one of those amazingly short and awesome meetings? No further topics? All right. Well, we will have SIG instrumentation, Slack group and mailing list up by the end of the week. There is a tune-up on docs. We will have the docs, the new docs SIG meeting next week. And we will continue to push this all forward. This is a lovely and short meeting, guys. No more questions, really. No fancy discussions. All right. Have a half hour back of your lives, and we will see you all next week.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks.